I just finished a conversation with Scott Gustin. He is a journalist and the gold standard for theme park news around the world. We talked about nostalgia, Disney versus Universal, and what Scott would do if he was running the parks. Stay tuned. So Scott, man, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For sure. So I mentioned you on our podcast last week because everybody was talking about the fifth gate coming, and it's interesting. 'Cause I feel like we're in this clickbait culture with everybody where you've got all of these bloggers, all of these even big news outlets talking about like, hey, there's a fifth gate coming. This is happening immediately. And you were quite literally, I think, the only dissenting person who was like, well, you guys know it's been in their plans for quite some time. And I feel like that's the cool thing about you is that every time I'm looking at your content, I'm just like, I can trust this guy. You know, how did that even start? And like, why are you maybe so different than so many of these other outlets?
I mean, I have a day job.
Yeah.
I have a job that is not park specific, so I get why the mainstream and Disney blogs like want to grab onto every little thread. I get it, but I mean, a big reason why I tried to find a path in the space is because of that. Because
Yeah.
I kept, this was pre-COVID. It's so much worse now. But it's um, it, you were incentivized to mislead, and there's just this assumption that like it's on the reader to always read the story and always go into figure it out. Like if you don't read the story, it's on you. Like we're just presenting things as they happen, and then it's on you to actually go do the homework and read it. And I try to I try to stay out of it most of the time until it gets to the point where I will get a question from someone who is like not in the Disney space, which is kind of what happened with this one, where
Yeah.
someone pretty notable like messaged me about it, like because they saw it in their feed, and I'm like, all right, fine, I will say something that will, you know, try to add some context to it.
Yeah.
I usually try to stay out because sometimes I make it worse. I think I bring more attention to, I can bring more attention to the bad actors on some of that. But the fifth gate thing is such a, I'm just so, I'm so tired of hearing about it with no real development, and also
Right.
knowing that Disney has kind of made it clear what their path is here. Like they've kind of laid it out more than they ever have.
It's kind of park
And
expansion, right? I mean, that's really,
right.
it's not next new gate. It's like, let's take what we already have and make it a little bit better.
Yeah, I would love to be shocked and surprised. And one day be listening to an earnings call and someone just drop it, or go to an expo and they drop a fifth gate. I would love to be surprised, but people that continue expecting it or looking for signs that they're working in secret and doing these things, and we're going to find out in a planning document, it's not going to happen. Like Disney doesn't want to shut the door on it,
Right.
because why would they? It's not good business to shut the door on something. They want, to be able to do that should they need to. But like, they may need a fifth gate because they need to close one of their parks permanently, like in 30 years.
Sure.
Like these are what ifs that are certainly not as interesting as the idea of them adding another park. But with Epic opening, there were new eyeballs on it. How is Disney going to respond? Old information from 15 years ago showing up in a document makes for a good headline, but
It does.
it's not as exciting as it seemed.
Yeah, and it's cool, man. I love, I dig what you do, and that I feel like you're like a trusted source because there's so few of those out there. There's even satire now, like whole satire sites that people take as Bible, and I'm like, you guys stop sending me this. Like this is literally they're the Onion for theme park nerds, and you think it's true, and yet like this is who we are. And you're right, they have to leave it to the reader to actually do all of the research now, which is it's kind of garbage when you think about it. They don't want to be a trusted news source. They want to have more clicks. And that's just what a sad state of affairs that we're in when you have to go that route.
Last night went to dinner with my brother, and he was like, I saw something in my feed that said that Disney was canceling the Muppets layover for Rock and Roller Coaster, but then I went back and I couldn't find the story. I couldn't find, is that true? And I'm like, I don't even know where you saw that. But,
Right.
it's not true. like that's just where we live now. Like you'll
Yeah.
even see things and then not be able to figure out where you saw it. Like we see so much,
Yeah.
and all it takes is like one little thing, and then it creates this idea in someone's mind that, oh no, I thought I saw that Disney World closed. They're
Right.
closed for the summer now. I think I saw that
I
somewhere.
think I
You're like,
saw that. Yeah.
what are you talking? What are you talking about? So
Yeah. This episode of the Orlando Real Podcast is brought to you by the Posit Group, my real estate company here in Orlando. Whether you're looking to buy or sell a house, we'd love to be your real estate resource of choice. Check us out over on Google. We've got over 1,600 five-star reviews. Then, when the time comes, visit theorlandoreal.com/YouTube to get started. It's wild to me that to break through the noise, you have to just tell the truth. That's a wild, take on where we're at as a society. Because for you, to be different, all I have to do is not make stuff up.
yeah.
That's wild. So take me back. I mean, when did you start in this whole process? I mean, I feel like started following you maybe through the COVID time, but you've been growing really quickly. But I saw articles for you from the past 7, 8, 9 years. So you're not new to the scene.
No, I think it was just a new way of covering it kind of happened, presented itself during COVID because it suddenly got a lot more serious than just, it's a small world closing for standard refurbishment or are they changing the ride? Like then suddenly it was, are the parks ever going to open again? What is it going to look like when the parks open? And there was still this appetite for a lot of misinformation during that time. And I was just trying to help people out who just wanted to know what actually is happening. Like, what is Disney saying is going to happen? I mean, during that time, like there was something new every day. It
Yeah.
was policies were changing and different scaled openings were happening. Different parks were opening. Like West Coast was uh, opening in a different, you know, uh, pace than Florida. There was just it was something every day, and it felt more where like I could say this is a little bit more serious, and the the misinfo is more harmful uh, than it is on a typical day when people are just finding something silly to say about an attraction and
Yeah.
make
Is
a
the
story out of
monorail.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. That's interesting. So how do you even from a tactical standpoint, I am kind of just super curious. You have a full-time job and yet you're the guy that breaks everything. I feel like I'm like I'll hear it somewhere. I'm like, I wonder what Scott said about this, and I'll pop over to X and just see what you said. And so, how is it that you're having this full-time gig and then yet you're Johnny on the spot every time?
I mean, because I mean, I do have a problem where I am obsessed with news in general and just like first to see and know, always
Mhm.
have been like want to be the person to tell family members, stuff about the parks, but also just things happening in the world. So I have kind of like a innate like interest in that. So
Yeah.
it's driven me to do a bunch of things that allow me to track, site updates, lots of feed integrations, all kinds of, notifications, and also just a commitment to, in every case that I can, trying to just find the truth has also allowed me to form relationships with people uh, at Disney, outside of Disney, that kind of share that interest. And
Yeah.
so they will, I have a lot of like watchers, people who will see things on forums or see things on Reddit and say, you know, what is this? Is this real? Is this true?
Yeah.
And things that I maybe don't see with my own eyes, I have people that will flag it, and then I'll try to go see if I can chase it down and see if it's legit. But
Yeah, Gustin groupies, they're out there making
yeah,
sure
and even
you
not
know
like it's not and not even Gustin groupies, but just people that have the same
passion.
weird fascination with every day wanting to know what's new, like
Yeah,
this being small site updates. What could it mean? Well, it doesn't mean anything, but it could mean something. And
right.
like that you have to like think like that in order to be willing to spend an hour trying to chase down, what does this new land looking kiosk that showed up in the parking lot at downtown Disney and Disneyland mean?
Yeah.
It means nothing, but it could have meant
Sure.
something.
Right. Yeah.
And so you have to just like constantly be paying attention to it, but then also like willing to take the time to like try to chase down, the details of it. I mean, that's where like my reporting background comes in handy, because you kind of know like the boxes you got to check, and you know the right ways to reach out to people and the ways that they're going to actually respond and not just ignore you. So it kind of all falls into place sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't, but it's really just the pure interest in trying to track down what's new and then try to get things confirmed, and not always be playing the speculation rumor game.
What if game? Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a Disney adult?
I don't. I don't have an issue with Disney adults. I know everyone else has an opinion on it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have an interest in the parks. I have kids, so like we have an interest in Disney as the brand.
Sure.
But I grew up. I mean, if a Disney parks adult is something, then I think that I'm that. But I wouldn't say that I'm like I'm not what I would describe as a Disney adult.
The negative connotation aside.
Yeah, I mean the negative connotation is stupid. Like that whole like just let people enjoy. Like
Sure.
The people that do criticize Disney adults, like here recently it was this guy on CNN and making a comment on CNN about Disney adults, like saying they need to be put in like the imprisoned essentially, where they're just insane, stupid things that people are saying.
Yeah.
And then you like look at his history, and again, I got no issue with this, but the guy loves wrestling. It's kind of like that's your thing.
That's
like,
also
just,
fantasy.
Like, come on, man. Like, are we serious? Like,
Yeah.
there's a picture of you ripping off your Hulkamania shirt, and you can't just let people like what they like.
Right. Yeah.
So
I think
I say
great.
I don't consider myself one, but that's not in a way of like trying to distance myself from it, because
Sure.
that is not how I got no problem with it. People should be able to like what they like. And that's that. But parks was parks for me growing up. I was always obsessed with just the idea of Walt Disney World, the Vacation Kingdom, the resort. Like, how does all that work? Like, how do the transportation, like all the inner workings, the cast members, like that experience is what I've always been interested in. Not so much like, Disney is the whole brand.
I totally agree. It's for me, it's the business. Like I do like the culture of it all, like, but I'm not going there for Cinderella. I'm going there because it's like, man, this is a living, breathing, multi-billion-dollar multinational corporation with 70,000 plus cast members on site. Like, it's fascinating. Like all of the stuff that has to come together to get that family from Iowa to come here and have a good experience. Like the whole thing fascinates me. And so I've only lived here for like 10 years or so. And so before that, I didn't have as deep of an interaction as we do now. And so I'm kind of wondering, like, was this Disney adult thing like always a thing? And I'm just now kind of like catching on, or is this kind of happened as our culture has changed? I'm not really sure if you have an opinion on it.
I think it's just the fact that Disney has been so dominant in mainstream for so long that you have people growing up where like their entire lives had Disney at the focus.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably not the case anymore, but people that are in that age group, like the early mid 20s, like Disney has always been at the top their entire lives. So if there are things that they didn't get to do as a kid for whatever reason, like if their family didn't go to Disney World, now they have their own money and they get to do what they want.
Sure.
That just seems like that's completely normal to me when I look at it. That's normal. The idea that you can't like something because it's some perceive it as being only for kids, it's stupid. It's just dumb. But I think the culture allows us to find fandoms a lot easier now, where it didn't back in the day, and you were unsure if what you liked is what someone else liked. And now we all obviously are. It's much easier to find people that share interests, and
especially with social media and all that kind of stuff right now.
Yeah, I mean it's so easy to find communities, and I think that is one that certainly was kind of like, oh, there's a lot of people that love doing this, and it's
that are just like me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do you
absolutely.
feel like so in that you've got a lot of nostalgia that has to come out, and I feel like Disney is leaning hard on nostalgia. They haven't really come up with fantastic new IP in a while. That's actually stuck. They could put in a theme park and would resonate with a good amount of people. I don't know. Do you feel like they have to continue to do that? I mean, is it because that's where the dollars are? Like there's 40-year-old, P 30, 40-year-old people that have their own money and they remember when I was a kid, it was like this. I'm trying to even wrap my mind around like, when like Disneyland was created and there wasn't a nostalgia immediately, but there was those movies that were so closely connected to their immediate life. Whereas we're looking at stuff and having nostalgia around stuff that's 20, 30, 40 years old. It'll be kind of interesting to see. Whereas I feel like Universal is leaning into a little bit of the nostalgia with Back to the Future and some of that kind of stuff, but a lot of it is more like what's going on today. And so it's kind of interesting to see both companies and the way that they approach that.
Yeah, I mean, original Disneyland was nostalgic for a time. Like he was Walt nostalgic for his hometown and for like what he viewed as important, like the old families should be able to go somewhere together and
Mm,
at the old West and the Main Street, like it always leaned into that. And then they've continued that in the parks, but now it's kind of like everything being IP focused. It's like, well, do we have to do the same for the IP if we're kind of moving away from what is known as a theme park and it's
sure.
kind of IP parks, right? So now it's this, all right, well, what is nostalgia? Like, what is
Mm,
nostalgia? Is it because it's a movie that came out 20 years ago? Do those movies still resonate with people beyond the people in their 30s and 40s that remember Toy Story? Like, does Toy Story still resonate with kids? Um, it is tricky, especially for the company that's struggling to find new stories to tell right now. It's tricky when audiences are saying they don't really care about original new stuff as much as people say they want it. They're not really showing that they do, and the next rich business executive will be the person who figures out how to fix that and what to do about it
yeah.
because it's a real struggle. I mean, I'm looking at, we're recording right before the new Jurassic Park movie comes out and reviews are terrible and it's going to make 150 million or something this weekend and
Yeah. I
I'm
was,
going to go I'm going to go
I'm gonna
see
go.
it.
I got tickets at 7 o'clock on Monday night. I'm
Yeah.
going, and so yeah, I agree with you. Like, do we need another Fast and Furious movie? No, we don't. But people still show up and they watch them when they come out. So
Yeah.
they're gonna keep riding that train until people just don't show up anymore.
And it's tough. It's like, do you really have to make good movies anymore? Or do you just have to make movies that people want to see? And that's an awful thing to think about
Yeah.
because we know as a theme park person, we know that uh, theme parks are directly tied, especially at Disney, to the IP and the movies and the success of those movies. So um, it it's not a fun thing to to think about, but I hope someone can figure it out.
Yeah. Same.
Like I don't know what the solution is. Everybody wants to feel the same way about Jurassic Park as they do the next new Pixar movie that's coming out, but we got to figure out how to get those two things together. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll give you my bad idea, and then we can move on from it. My bad idea that I still tell people about, so I don't think it's that bad, is just like committing to Disney Plus being the way you introduce people to things, and then you take success to the box office. You
Yeah.
don't all. I hate to say like no original ideas go to the box office, but like if in any way you're taking a risk, you need to find a way to expose it to people in a way that makes sense in 2025 and
Mm.
not gamble 150 million in marketing on the box office. So like an Inside Out, if it were coming out for the first time in 2025, you might expose people in some way to that on Disney Plus, and then you make it on the back end with Inside Out too. Like that, it seems they do that in some ways. Like they're
Sure.
kind of doing it with the Mandalorian and Grogu, but they kind of backed into that. It's just uh, it
Didn't
almost
feel as
needs
intentional. Yeah.
Yeah, and it almost needs to be intentional. Like this is it doesn't mean every single thing has to go this route, but it's kind of like you got to check some boxes. And if the story needs more natural organic exposure, then you need to find a way to get that. And
I love
I
it, man. I don't know if you've ever told somebody at Disney that, but like I think about Apple. If Ted Lasso all of a sudden was on the big screen and they had like some, instead of season 4 of Ted Lasso, it was like, hey, an original Ted Lasso movie, I would be there, and so would millions of other people. Severance, like there's always these like little tangents you could take and create a movie out of one way or the other, and I think that's brilliant. And I know Apple's spent a ton on IP for Apple TV, but Disney's, their scale, they could easily do that and introduce it. And then they've got the data to back it. They're like, hey, this is crushing over here. Let's now go invest in a movie. That's fascinating, man.
And I mean, they were doing it a little bit with Disney Plus at the beginning, where it was the focus, but that was just because the business told them that streaming is the future. So everything,
Sure.
was going there. It was never a strategic thought put into it. But the Marvel example I always give is Eternals.
Mm.
Box office disaster. It's a good movie. It's a pretty good movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it would have made a better Disney Plus show because there's so many characters and you could have introduced them in a way that made sense and allowed people to understand them. And then maybe it didn't do any better. Maybe it wouldn't do any better. But if it did, then you make the movie and then you don't like send the entire like MCU in a different direction because that didn't work out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a ton of examples since then, but that was one where I just remember I didn't see it in the theater. I saw it when it came out at home and I'm watching it. I'm like, this is actually a good movie. It's just way too much for a film. No one's going to get attached to these characters. But anyway, that's my small elevator pitch
I like it.
on it cannot be one size fits all to fix this, but somebody's got to figure it out because there are good original stories that people are not going to see because the marketing is not reaching them.
Yeah.
Elio for Pixar, I see people saying, I didn't even know this movie came out. I'm like, how have you not seen it? Like, I can get people, I get that people are not interested in seeing it. Like, it didn't appeal to them. I understand, like, if a story doesn't convert and people just have no interest in it, that makes sense. But people still saying they didn't even know it came out. It's like something's wrong here.
Yeah. Some marketing
Yeah.
exec didn't do their job. It's interesting, man. So next time the vote comes up for the board, I'll write in your name, and then for no, okay.
No,
they can hire you as a consultant. Maybe
I have one idea. That was
okay. All right, fair enough. Let's talk about Epic. So I know I mentioned that they weren't Universal wasn't leaning too hard into nostalgia, but I guess if you think about Epic, it's like Mario. Nostalgia, Monsters, Frankenstein's 100-year-old brand. How to Train Your Dragon was newer, right? That was actually, to me, it felt like the biggest risk that they were taking, and honestly, it's my favorite land there. So, what do you think? I mean, Epic versus what Disney's doing. What are your thoughts on that, and like, where do we go from here?
I mean, I don't think there's anything that's truly like, as much as people want to say like Epic is the future of theme parks. I don't really see it that way. I think they did a really good job of establishing a vision, sticking to it, and not changing course over a pandemic. Like it's crazy to think how they just stuck with it.
Yeah.
And they turned out a really, really good park. It's not a perfect park.
No.
I think the concept is I am encouraged by the concept of it. It is obviously IP focused, but there's a lot of original in there mixed in. And the execution is just really well done. I mean, How to Train like Burke is incredible.
It's incredible. Yeah.
But it's not a land that like Disney would ever build in the way that Universal built it. So I love that it exists because I mean, speaking of the Disney board, like they all went to Epic in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
All of them. I think there were some pictures of Josh tomorrow, but everybody went. And I'm just glad that it exists for them to see it, because it is not the type of land that I think Disney would look at and say, we can build that, or we need to build that.
In what way?
I think uh, it's not perfect, but it's okay. Like this, um, there's so much squeezed in that land. Kinetics of that land are incredible. Um, all the dragons, the immersion, but the rides are not really that special. The roll, I think the coaster is the best coaster in the park,
Mm-hmm.
but everything else is kind of off the shelf. Has a great theater show.
Show's fantastic.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah.
amazing. I think Disney is capable of doing it. I just don't think on paper. I think if Disney had been like uh, been pitched that idea, they would not have pulled it off as well
Mm.
as Universal did. I think they would have, cut the show or said, no, we need it. We can't have this kind of strange timeline set that they decided on in Burke, that they break their own. I feel like they kind of break their own rules on opening day with who's in the land.
Yeah.
Disney would have kind of been like, no, we can't have those characters. We have to do this. We have to come up with a fictional version of Burke.
The way that
like
the way Galaxy's Edge
yeah,
exists, and you're
yeah,
like, why is there like there's yeah, you're kind of stuck with Kylo Ren, and you're like, oh, but then all of a sudden Grogu and Mandalorian are walking around. You're like, huh, that's interesting. But I agree, and I remember early on all of the ideas. I even talked to some Imagineers that were like, Ken, like there's so many other things we added into the land because we plan on having shows all the time, and there's new electric stuff built in to have lightsaber fights and all this other stuff, and all of the show budget got cut. And so is that kind of like what you're leaning into? Is like, hey,
yeah.
this could have felt like a much more living, breathing land than what actually exists.
Yep. And uh, I think for Burke to work, it has to be exactly what it is. Like, had they started cutting,
Yeah.
then that land would not. I don't think it would work as well. They'd like cut all the dragons that are around the land, and it just kind
Yeah.
of would have been a facade with some rides. But it is truly a land in the best definition. I think even at that, I mean, Mario is top tier. But the two of them are the perfect true lands that have enough attractions to call it that. I still don't think Potter has enough. Even though it's gorgeous, it's not
It
enough,
is.
in my opinion, to be a
Yeah,
land.
agreed. I feel
But
like Monsters and Potter need to like maybe expanded before they open another portal. That would be
yeah,
the way that I look at it.
yeah. But I mean, like Potter, it is the what they've done so far. I don't think it's done, but what they've done so far is an A plus.
Yeah.
Like it's just not. It doesn't feel like enough, in my opinion. Even though
Yeah.
it's pretty big, it just needs. I think it needs more.
Yeah.
It feels more like what Disney would do.
Agreed. Yeah, there you go. And even over in like Monsters, in Darkmoor, like having the Invisible Man walk around, having who's the guy Corey that I'm blanking on that walks around, Igor walking around. Like everybody's like, oh, they're going to be cut week one, right? But I was there; they're still walking around, and that it makes it feel that extra like you feel like you're part of something again instead of just looking at a building and then you go into the ride. So, man, I've never thought about it that way. That's a really cool way to unpack it.
I think all the people talking about like what's going to be cut at Epic. I am worried for that type of stuff after this year. I think it's
Yeah.
pretty locked for this year. I do have concerns beyond this year for what a lot of things in that park look like going forward. But um, anyone going this year, I think you're going to get the full, Epic Universe like opening year experience with all of that. I hope it continues, but
Me too. We were there last week, and man, it was you give them grace because it's a new park, but and I live here, so I give them extra grace. But like other people that if you flew in, like dude, Monsters was down, Burke show was down, Untrainable Dragon show was down, like half the show was down, Wi-Fi was down, guest member services was down, and I was like, And I looked at my kids, and my kids were still having the greatest time because like Mario, like they were running around Mario and playing, and there was that interactive piece or whatever. But if they didn't have all of those extra pieces and all of those other characters to make the lands come to life, we would have probably been upset and left, kind of thing.
Yeah. The weather thing, I think, is my biggest critique of them, because they knew it. They
Yeah.
knew this from the beginning. They knew
Right.
what they were
It's
built.
Florida. It's
Yeah.
Orlando. It's
In the
rain
same
every day.
in the same way I give them credit for not changing their plan throughout, like they set that plan in the beginning to
Yeah.
build all of the things that they built that are a bit iffy with the weather in Orlando. And expansion will help
Mhm.
if they expand the right way. Like
Yeah.
if they don't
Right.
build more attractions that are going to have the same
In,
problem. I mean,
right.
we keep seeing. Disney's might be doing the same thing when they built the Cars attraction at Magic Kingdom. Like we're kind of keep doing the same thing here, and I don't know at what point they think it's going to rain less in Orlando, but
No, it's
it's
not.
not.
So in that, and kind of like hinging back onto the his nostalgia thing, do you get any sort of way when you start seeing old rides get knocked down for new stuff to come along, like a Cars?
I don't, not for Rivers of America, not personally. I don't. I think it's ridiculous that they are doing it. I don't. I'm not upset about it in terms of like nostalgia. I think it's silly that they can't find a way to build on new land when there's land all around them. I know it's not all buildable land,
Yeah,
and I know it's very expensive land to build on. Um, and I know it's expensive to expand the footprint of your theme park, um, just from the guest like flow perspective. So
yeah,
all of that said, I wish they had not gone with this plan, but I personally am not like upset that Tom Sawyer or Liberty Bell or Rivers of America are going. But I understand why people are. I do think everyone has to be realistic when they look at you what is used in the park in those three things. And
totally agree.
you know, I'm not a person who thinks everything needs to have an extended wait time, but Tom Sawyer Island is like it is not. It's not very accessible in terms of like
No,
how to get there. And then once you're
no,
there, it's I'm 6'1". I walk through those caves and I'm like, I don't know how these exist where parents can walk through with their kids, because
yeah,
I mean it's crazy that it made it this long.
yeah. You're
um
you're
but
on the
I
island, and you very quickly want to leave the island. So
Yeah, I
like,
mean,
let's just
trip hazards everywhere. Like it is pretty surprising that it made it until it did.
sure.
So the beauty of that area, it is a beautiful part of the park. I think where I've kind of landed is that Disney has to nail the vision that they've presented for that Cars attraction, and if they
Mm,
start scaling back and not really going all in on what I think they're going to pull off for it, then they deserve a lot of criticism for
yeah.
taking out something that may not have been a huge attendance driver or a ton of guests experiencing it, but it is a beautiful part of the park. So you have to replace it with something equally beautiful. It's not going to be the
Or
same,
better.
but
Yeah.
it needs to be a centerpiece that they're at least presenting is the vision. And
Yeah. And
I hope they stick
Walt's
with it.
whole, yeah, me too. I feel like Walt's whole idea of, the parks are never done. This is always a living, breathing kind of thing is, I think we all have to just embrace that. Cause I agree, like stuff's going to fall out of favor with people, or maybe it's not being used, but they have to make the experience better. And so I think the original concept for that area was, it was fine. I mean, most people are like, oh, it's going to be a dirt track. That's what, but the most recent one looks great. And so they iterate on that and actually make it happen. I think it'd be really nice. What's one thing that maybe you've seen come across that was a rumor that you wished was true?
Oh, hmm. You go first. Give me a second to think on that. If you have one, let me think.
I mean, beyond the fifth gate thing, I feel like, yeah, I mean, well, especially before they announced, like when Iger did the call and he was like, "Hey, we're just going to expand the parks. We're not going to do the fifth thing." I was like, Villains Park would be so cool if that was actually a thing. But obviously, it's been disproved now after the past year or two.
Yeah. I mean, the my answer before they made the announcements at Expo, my answer would have been the Monsters Inc. roller coaster. Like that rumor is how I found like the parks fandom when I was in high school, because I
Okay.
remember looking up that rumor on like the forums. And that's like the first like insider thing that I can remember reading about. I was in high school and I was like,
Yeah.
dang, that'd be awesome.
That'd be really cool. Yeah.
So like that probably would have been my answer as like this rumor that I hoped or wish would come true. And then it actually did. So that was pretty awesome.
That is really
Um,
cool.
I mean the Villains Park, I think, um, you know, to jump back to Epic really quick, I think the Monsters land is interesting and the Monsters attraction. Um, it is a high capacity ride, but if you
Mm.
look, like the wait times for it are pretty low.
They are.
And
Yeah.
uh, I think there is a little bit of something here where there are very specific people that are interested in that, or interested in HHN, or interested in a scarier aspect to the parks. And I don't think Disney is gonna. I mean, they're gonna do what they do with Villains, which is not
Sure.
super scary. Um, but it is kind of interesting to see that land the way that it is, which is awesome. Not be maybe as big of a draw as people
Mm.
might have thought. I remember having conversations with people before it opened. I was like, um, they were talking about Monsters Unchained having, being the best attraction they've ever been on. There's going to be these hour-long waits, and I'm like, Mario's going to be a bigger draw. They're
Yeah.
like, no,
Because there's
no,
just
and
a
I'm like,
broader amount of people that it's
yeah,
kids, it's everybody. Yeah.
everyone in the family wants to do that.
That is
Um,
interesting.
the
Yeah.
family that goes, like maybe the parents might want to go over to Monsters. Maybe the kids do. There are plenty of kids, like, but there are a lot that don't. Whereas Mario is going to cross over more. People same can be said for Burke.
Yeah.
So like then to think about like an entire park being that, um, I, I do think maybe Disney made the right call on saying, like even if that was ever on the table,
Hmm.
just saying like it can be a land, but it being an entire park um, would be a huge risk and a gamble, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed. Yeah.
allowing
Yeah.
Disney to build a fifth theme park is also would be a massive risk.
That's a gamble, especially now. And I feel like is that a leadership issue, or is that a just like not understanding what the public actually wants? Like, it's an interesting from a movie perspective. Going back to the IP thing, it's just like, is it just that they're so far removed and like. I'm a huge Disney fan. We're there all the time. We're pass holders, all that kind of stuff. But like, it does feel like over the past decade that just they've sort of lost their way. Like so I wouldn't trust them with a new theme park. You're absolutely right in terms of like where they're investing and what they're choosing on in this iteration, anyways.
Yeah, I mean it's all. I think there are plenty of ideas, and I think the creatives would be able to figure it out. I just don't trust the budgeting, them staying within budget, not
Mm,
getting cut, the timelines that they work on, having to extend costs over multiple years and decades. That's the part that would give me concern. I also kind of look at Animal Kingdom, and it's kind of like you have a fourth park that's still not figured out.
yeah,
A fifth park is now asking people to stay a lot longer on their vacations. And I think Disney has the data that kind of shows that four is really the max, like
that's
that you can
actually
expect people to do it without cannibalizing what you have. And they
yeah.
know if they were to do that, had they, when they announced Epic, if Disney had been like, yeah, we're doing that too, and they started building one, we know it wouldn't be open yet.
Sure.
But if they were in the process of doing that, the biggest concern would be what is going to happen to Animal Kingdom,
Sure.
because that is where everyone would pull their day. And it that I mean, I love Animal Kingdom.
Mm,
Uh, they have and are doing a lot to put money into that park, the Tropical Americas. It needs more, and
mhm.
I hope that that is the continuation. I hope that it is a reimagining of what a fourth park can be, not Animal
Yeah.
Kingdom, but just what a fourth park can be for a resort, instead of, you know, having any pipe dreams of a fifth park. Like,
Dang, that's
just
really good
make the
insight.
fourth one really good.
Yeah, because I mean, how many times have you do hear Animal Kingdom is a half day? It's a half day park for when it closes early, but not everybody wants to do every little single thing there. And so, reimagining that. How about we make our fourth park a full day park? That'd be
Yeah,
cool. Like, what if
yeah.
we started there,
And they
and then move
tried,
up?
like, they did some nighttime stuff, but they didn't put the actual uh the investment that you need to. I think they know that now. They tried. They put the Rivers of Light when Pandora was opening, and they kind of were like, now we have it. They didn't, and they quickly figured it out. Tropical Americas is not going to get into a full day park either. It's going to need something else.
Yeah,
Um, but I would love in a decade to not have everyone saying, well, what's Disney's or fifth park Epic, like still saying that, and saying like Epic motivated them to figure out how to have a full day functioning awesome Animal Kingdom as the fourth park, instead of trying to go on a fifth
man, that's
route.
yeah. Dang, that's really good insight. I mean, I already know a lot of people. It used to be, we're coming to Orlando for a 7 day trip. We're going to do 5 days at Disney, maybe one day at Universal. Now there's more and more of them saying we're going to do 3 days at Disney, 2 days at Universal, and it's starting to be more and more. Could you imagine, like, yeah, you open up a fifth park, they're just gonna get more confused. You're gonna bastardize some of the other, pulling it from one way or the other. And so let's improve the quality. I love that thinking. I've not ever heard anybody else talk about that before. So that's freaking awesome. What do you feel like is the thing you're most excited about that's coming right now?
Um, I'm I'm excited that they are expanding. I know people are sad about Rivers of America. I am not personally 100% certain that they're going to make that on the vision for cars, but I'm excited they're expanding the footprint of Magic Kingdom, because that is the park that really needs it.
Yeah.
And that's it. As the Super Parks fans, sometimes we forget and don't fully get that that is Disney World to most people, is
Hmm.
Magic Kingdom.
Hmm.
As great as our nights are when we go to Epcot and we drink around the world or whatever we're going to do, like when people say they're going to Disney World, they're going to Magic Kingdom. So I am, as a fan of the parks, I'm excited that they are doing that. We have, the largest expansion in the history of that park actually happening. Um, I'm I'm on the fence about if it ends up being, things that I personally am going to be excited about, and that they're going to, make it on the vision. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that they are doing that. Um, Selfishly, I am excited to ride the Doors coaster
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Hollywood
Same.
Studios.
The throwback to high school. It's coming. It's
Yeah, I
good for
think
you.
that's just going to be it's going to be so awesome. My bad idea, another bad idea that I had for Monsters was, because I did like the Muppet Vision 3D. I just thought it was it just didn't need to go away. Like,
Yeah.
um it needed more foot traffic back there, but it was still a good show. And I am bummed that it's gone. But my bad idea was always do your thing, build the monsters courtyard, but just make it Monsters Present Muppet Vision. Like of all the shortcuts that
Sure.
we see Disney take in ways to retheme and do things, why they decided that that was just off the table and they have to do a new monster show when we already have one in Magic Kingdom. I cannot figure that part out. You could have bent over backwards and convinced people how the Muppets made it into the monster world.
Easily.
You easily could have done that in the pre-show. We could have lost the
Sure.
pre-show at Muppet Vision and kept the show.
Yeah.
And then you would have saved money as a business, and you would have saved the hurt that people feel when that show is gone.
Mm.
And probably they wouldn't have had to retheme Rock and Roller Coaster and save the money. It's not much money, but
Yeah.
the retheme
Still.
that they're doing over there, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like
That's not a value add over there. That's like we want to satisfy a couple people because or not a couple, a lot of people because we're taking it over here.
yeah,
A friend of mine, Nick Goodner, he's does a lot of stuff on Instagram and talks about branding and that. He was talking about how he felt how Muppets is obviously being disserviced by Disney in a lot of ways because there's nobody that like owns it, runs it, loves it right now, and like so because of it, it's getting kind of like third tier treatment, if you will. And I have to agree with that. I don't know if anybody's like investing in that IP to help grow it and make it something really special. It's kind of a
they're
bummer.
not. Yeah, I mean, I think it's basically under Imagineering now, and
Yeah,
so that allows them to do some things. Like they brought them into Jollywood Nights. Like there's places that they've shown up there at the Food and Wine Festival, but it's never a what I would call like a full investment in the brand. It's
yeah,
kind of just a mascot. That's what bums me out because when you go that route, you are 100% purely relying on nostalgia.
mm,
And that's just like the death nail for something when you're not doing things new. And it's
yeah.
just always this, you know, mascot route. It's what they did with and are doing with Figment
Sure.
until they update and like fix that. It's all just you're basing this on people that remember the old Figment.
The
Remember,
old days.
yeah,
Yeah.
the old days and the reason they love Figment was
Right.
then, not now, and they just kind of keep going the mascot route on that
And
without
that's
anyone saying like, all right, we're gonna forgetting what Bob Iger said on a call about short form Figment, whatever. That was a silly comment. I don't buy it for a second. Um, Forgetting that, like, there's no one saying like, here's this thing people love. Let's make them love it more. It's just kind of
yeah.
like, let's keep giving people what they like.
And
And
it's short-sighted when you think about trying to build a park for the next 20, 30 years. Cause my kids don't know Figment. My kids actually don't know Muppets really, other than when the couple times I made them go watch the show, they have no like there's no there's no shows to watch. And so all of a sudden you're trying to keep it around and they're gonna be the next generation not too long from now that is spending their money to come to Disney. And so or Universal or anybody else. And so last question I'll leave you with. You're walking around the parks and you're like, I just wish this was different. What would that thing be?
um, my answer would have been a night parade at Magic Kingdom. So
Yeah.
we're getting that.
Yep.
I'm a huge like Spectrum Magic is my core like parks memories.
Yeah.
Is that time when it was running? So I'm super glad that's coming back. Um, hmm. Well, I mean, I love Magic Kingdom, but there's a lot that I would change about the way that park flows. Um, but I feel like there, there's too many things with Magic Kingdom that I would say. All just like um, guest flow and the way that I'm hoping that it's not a nightmare when they add that night parade. But
I miss a good night
yeah.
parade at Magic Kingdom though. I totally agree. Well, you've
Uh,
had you say you had one good idea, but you've been like throwing good ideas after me. So I don't know, man. They need to bring you on as a consultant. That's for sure.
no. I like the armchair quarterback.
All
Like,
right,
I
that's
mean,
fair.
my answer for what would I change is something that they have already announced. But I mean, that would have been my answer, and it has been my answer for like 5 years. Is why is a night parade not at Magic Kingdom? Um, I I I would probably. I think the one thing I would change specifically to a land is also just a strategy change, and they're kind of starting to do it, but I still don't give them full credit for it. Is the way that they build these unnecessary boxes around things like Galaxy's Edge
Mm,
that limit creativity.
yeah.
because they want something that they kind of, and I mean Imagineering kind of decides it's what people want. Like they decide that they didn't want to rebuild a known location in the Star Wars universe, that they wanted to create their own, because then it unlocks the ability to do all of these things. But then they limit their creativity because you're not only creating a place, you create all these rules that don't allow you to change over time. And I just wish that would be a dead idea, a concept. Like Radiator Springs Racers at Disneyland is the perfect land.
So good.
And
so good.
It didn't, the land itself did not require much creativity. It looks just like the movie.
Right.
But that allowed them to
looks great
day,
at
night. It is perfect. But then they dumped all their creativity into like the attractions. Like Radiator Springs Racers is one of my top probably 5 attractions at any Disney park.
Yeah.
Even the silly Tomater, kind of off the shelf attraction is adorable. Like
you can't ride that one without laughing. It's like really hard. Like it's regardless of what age you are, it's a fun, silly ride, but then you get caught up in it. And that's what we're all looking for, I think, a lot of times in these theme parks. Is just like, let's detach from reality a little bit. Let's have a little bit of that nostalgia, have fun with your family. And how do you get that to be the core beyond everything else?
And the reason it works so well, even though it's a basic thrill, is because you are in Radiator Springs, like at that moment. Like that's where you are. You're not on, like some made up Route 66 land that they decided to build that feels like it might be, a suburb of Radiator Springs.
Man, that's good. That is,
like you are there, and so that
ride
works so much better because you are actually there. So I would make big changes to Galaxy's Edge. I feel like they are kind of already are doing that with the Smuggler's Run updates, but it's more just the idea that if you're going to build a land, don't create a bunch of rules that restrict all of those really creative people from being creative. Like let them go nuts. Let them break rules. Like a good idea might break every rule you have. Don't shut out good ideas because you have decided that you need to follow all of these steps. You don't want to completely abandon visions, but I know I've heard stories of very, very good ideas being turned down in the parks because of the rules that are kind of set up from the beginning, and you got to let these people be creative.
That's what Disney was known for, was their creativity, and that's why people had that sense of of freedom and fantasy when you walk through that kind of thing. And if you're stifling that, especially with your Imagineers, these legendary people, let them cook. That's what we're here. Scott, man, I appreciate you joining us. If people want to follow you, where's the best place to do it?
Find me on Twitter, on X. I'm usually there. I will share news. Sometimes I share if it goes so far that I feel like I need to say something that's not like by the book, I'll jump in on trends and other stuff, but mostly just sharing news on Twitter. Find me there.
Love it, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.